Dear one, it's Erika Schreck, and I have been in the midst of creating, over the last few years, a series that I call Grief Ease. As an intuitive grief coach, and also someone who works a lot with others, not only with grief, but also other kinds of healing, using many modalities and tools, and having had basically a lifelong journey of loss, grief, death, myself. One thing that's been coming up a lot again lately, and I'm noticing, and I want to speak to this, it's the last time that you talk to a loved one and or see them. And this also includes humans and animals. And I think that we have an invitation with that last time, that we can either feel the pressure of it and continue to go over what wasn't perfect, as we might say, or what it might have ideally looked like, felt like. And we also have an invitation to tune into the power of it. Now, I don't want to imply that we do it or review it perfectly, especially when we have just had that loss or death. I want to encourage you to revisit sometimes those more difficult last times and try to see it with a refreshed perspective, and maybe even have a little bit more grace and gentleness with yourself. So recently, in fact, about a month ago, I had a neighbor who died, and I saw Susie often. I saw her walking my dogs over the last 20 years that I have lived in this neighborhood, and always pleasant, always friendly. And last year, when she received a cancer diagnosis, we had a thing. And when I'd see her, no matter, what time of day, whatever it was, we'd hug. We'd hug each other. And I wanted her to feel that I really cared, even though we didn't see each other perhaps daily, but we saw each other often enough that we knew things. I know her family. I was fortunate to know her dog for a long time and see her working in her garden. And I can tell you that the last time that I saw her, she was out on a walk as I was with my dog. She was out with her daughter and grandson, who was just born not that long before, and this particular daughter's dog, whom I love as well. And I just remember there was, a feeling of, oh, it's so good to see them, and we have this sweet connection, and the dogs ran around off leash, and it was just this beautiful moment. And as I walked away, I can tell you this, one of the first thoughts I had was, oh, I didn't get to ask her how she's been feeling lately, how she's been doing. Okay. So that stuck with me. And for the next several days, I actually thought about, oh, I should leave her a card or just want to reach out somehow. And I didn't. And time went on. And 2 weeks later, she died. And it really affected me, even as someone who does this, who supports others, who knows different things and has different perspective on this whole experience. And I was really in that. And what I discovered and was reminded of again, because I can also tell you the story of my dad dying suddenly at age 48, and didn't know that the last conversation I was going to have with him was on the phone about a week before that, where he had been trying to reach out a little bit more, and he'd invited me to a local soccer game in Milwaukee, the Milwaukee Wave, and I had to work. And so I had told him, I'm so sorry, I can't. And it's kind of now close to asking off. And again, like any other human, did I look at that and say, oh, I wish I would have taken the time. I wish I would have asked off of work. And, but I didn't know. And I also didn't know that before that, several months had been my last Father's Day with my dad, where I chose to ask him to go on a walk with me, and told him that he wasn't the greatest father all the time. And I needed him to know that. And even in that particular example, and I've shared this in writing in other places and with clients, I felt so much better and lighter having told him the truth, and also that he did shift his behavior. That ask for us to, me and my siblings, to join him for this soccer game, was growth, was a shift. So all this to say, again, do you choose to focus on the pressure, the disappointment, what didn't go right in a last conversation or meeting? Or do you choose to see the power in it and where that power can come from as well? And I think that this can shift how we move through this world, even day to day. We're not going to take advantage of every opportunity. I didn't write my neighbor that card, and I feel badly about it. That is true. And though, where the growth is, where the progression can be for me, for you, is to look at consistently, how did you show up? What did you choose? We can't always take off of work when someone asks us to do something. We don't always know when someone's last day is going to be, diagnosis or not a diagnosis. So my hope and my invitation today for you is to, again, consider how you might differently live your life and choose and be inspired when you're trying to live for no regrets. Now, I can name a long list of people in my life who died, and I think with every one of them, I probably had a regret. Oh, I should have reached out again. Oh, why didn't I, and it goes on. It really goes on. And I invite you, when possible, to stop that record that's spinning of the if only I had, or the regret record, and to say and to focus on, again, what did you do? What are you happy about? What times are you grateful for? We do this too if you've ever lost a pet, either in a scheduled time when there's been a transition, euthanasia, for example, or even a sudden, decision that has to happen or has happened. And I can tell you, I remember my dog Harley, my first of 3 rescue dogs as of now. And the moment that I played over and over again was, him, in those last stages, or the woulda, shoulda, coulda. And again, I had to learn eventually, I wanted to learn eventually how to replace that instead, how to not keep reliving the horrific moments that, again, for the 10 plus years that we had together were so glorious, were so amazing, and there was so much love, there was so much unconditional love. So whatever you might be hearing as you're listening, thank you. But just note, what are you nudged to do differently in your life in general with people? For some people, it's even as simple like, on a consistent basis, I know that I try to do this, that people know how I feel about them. There's never a mystery. And even with my dad dying suddenly, I could tell you that the thing that I felt really good about and didn't have as a regret is I always told him, even the difficult messages like I shared with you about the Father's Day. He always knew how I felt. And I think if that can be a goal for all of us, I find that can be very healing. And what if that wasn't your experience? What if you do have the regret and the ache? Why can't you still say it? Why can't you still write it? And I know it doesn't exactly feel the same, but your body will be able to feel it, will be able to find and be in some more relief. I guarantee this. We'll be able to feel lighter. So even if it feels like it's too late, it really never is too late. And I believe that there is a way for you to relieve, to also carry your grief differently, because you choose to look at what feels unresolved. And sometimes that's tied to the last day or conversation. Sometimes it's not. But it's also the same of just what comes up for me too is, I remember flying back to, where I grew up in Wisconsin and trying to get there as my grandfather was dying. And I was gifted time to be with family, but I was there in his last 24 hours, and he, his consciousness was not there. He was on a lot of morphine, dealing with cancer. But I got to go and say things, and I got to go and be at his bedside one-on-one. We don't always get that. I also got to be there for his actual transition with my family, which was a really beautiful thing. We're not always given that. So to think now how this might inspire you to live differently, to choose differently, to tell people even the difficult things, that is always your choice. But how, when you get to your last day and others are getting to theirs, how can you feel most at peace? It's never going to be perfect. I can tell you this now. And how can this be an invitation for doing something now as soon as possible, for saying something, writing something, having an act of, I need to do this. I want to not feel that regret and that ache later. So again, inviting you to feel the power and not so much the pressure and the berating yourself and being unkind to yourself, that you are doing your best and what's something that you might be inspired to do now or do differently moving forward with those whom you love. As we all aim for no regrets, as we all also more consistently connect in the ways that feel authentic and true to your beautiful and wise self. So just some things to think about. I wanted to offer this on your journey of easing your grief and perhaps carrying it a bit differently. Until next time, be well.